Leading Zimbabwean opposition activist Pastor Evan Mawarire has been acquitted on charges of trying to overthrow Robert Mugabe's former government. The organizer of last year's Number This Flag protests faced 20 years in prison had he been convicted. A Harare High Court judge ruled there was no evidence that he had urged a violent removal of government. The case was seen as a test of judicial independence after the forced resignation of Mr. Mugabe last week. The former president, who stepped down after soldiers placed him under house arrest, was long accused of using the courts to hound his political opponents. Tweeting a selfie taken in the courtroom, the smiling pastor called on his fellow citizens to join in building a better Zimbabwe. My fellow citizens, it is my absolute pleasure to inform you that I have been acquitted of all charges. Thank you for your prayers and support. Let's join hands in building a better Zimbabwe. Number this flag pic.twitter.com/ofsofnstake. End of Twitter post by @Pastor Evan Live. Pastor Mawarire galvanized people outside and inside Zimbabwe, encouraging them to protest about perceived corruption and economic mismanagement under President Mugabe. Some Zimbabweans will see his acquittal as a symbolic victory, coming just after Mr. Mugabe's resignation and the inauguration of his former deputy, Emmerson Mnangagwa, as president, the BBC's Shingaye Nyoka reports from Harare. However, Amnesty International's regional director for Southern Africa, Diprose Muchina, warned there was still work to do. Hopefully the ruling signals a new beginning for the country, where the political repression which characterized Mugabe's rule will no longer be tolerated, he said. The task for President Mnangagwa now is to ensure that a culture exists in Zimbabwe in which voices from outside his government are free to air their opinions on an equal platform, without fear of facing criminal charges. The acquittal had been expected because when the pastor was granted bail, a judge had hinted that the case against him was weak. Political campaigning on social media is one of the reasons why Mr. Mugabe's government created the Ministry of Cybersecurity and kicked off the process of drafting laws to regulate social media, our correspondent adds. The former government, in which Mr. Mnangagwa served as vice president before his dramatic fallout with Mr. Mugabe, said the laws would help curb the spread of cyber terrorism and revenge porn. But media activists expressed fear that it would be used to crack down on free speech. With Mr. Mnangagwa having promised a new era of democracy, it is to be seen whether the proposed legislation addresses the concerns of activists and whether he will retain the cybersecurity ministry in what he says will be a lean cabinet, our correspondent says.